We are honored to be joined by Dr. Ashley Koning, who is the director of the Rutgers Eagleton Center for Public Interest Polling. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve.
Ashley, I've known Eagleton for a long time. You know, I graduated from there a long time ago. And polling has been a huge part of the Eagleton brand. It wasn't just the Eagleton poll. It was so many polls that were off in this New Jersey gubernatorial election. We're taping this toward the end of 2021. Why?
Yeah, so I think that's a big question, right? This is something we've faced since 2016. For any pollster, I think there's a lot of challenges, especially when we talk about doing pre-election polling. Number one, we don't know who likely voters are, right? This is a population that is unknown, that is becoming more and more difficult to provide an educated guess for, especially in the light of certain things like, let's say it, Trump. In the Trump era, we know that polling has become increasingly difficult. We have skyrocketing cell phone rates, lowering response rates, rapidly declining since 2016. And we have likely voters who we don't know who they are or frankly how they're going to vote in terms of the system we have now, whether mail-in or early voting or in-person day of voting. There are a lot of factors that are hard to control for and getting harder to control for with every new election.
Given everything you just said, has the need for, the demand for, and the credibility of polls gone by the boards? Why do we need them?
So I think, I like to be a romantic for this. I'm not one for pre-election polling so much. I'm more about doing general public opinion polling because there are issues that never get their day at the ballot box. And we've seen polling on those issues really have an effect on public policy. First and foremost, let's talk about same-sex marriage a decade ago and how polling on that really propelled U.S. Supreme Court decisions and decisions across a variety of states. So I think we need polling, and we know who the general public is when we poll them. I think we need polling for moments like that. Pre-election polling, I think we all get caught up in the horse race. Polls are not meant to predict. They're not crystal balls. They're in the moment, the here and now of what respondents are thinking at that very second. And it's explaining the why and the how of voter behavior. It shouldn't be explaining who's ahead and who's behind and focusing on those numbers as if, they're do or die gospel of what's going to happen on election day.
Well, and I don't want to get into the weeds here, but one of my mentors at Eagleton, the great Dr. Cliff Zukin, taught me about polling. And I often realized as he was teaching us at Eagleton that it is more complex than people think. And the reality is we in the media, we want to get the numbers. We want to put and by the way, public broadcasting tries to be different, but you put the numbers up, who's ahead? Okay. And that impacts fundraising, which impacts who's going to vote. Oh, he's too far ahead. She's behind. She's not going to win. Is polling too complicated for the average person to understand? Which begs my question again, polling in elections, has it become outdated?
Yeah, so first of all, we had the same advisor. So I know we're both on the same page regarding this. He's incredible. And we're now as a center turning 50 years old. We were the first of our kind in its nation. So of course we want to make sure that we get it right. We have a big legacy to keep up. I think in pre-election polling, we need to understand it more. Giants like Pew Research Center and Gallup have stopped horse race polling altogether. Maybe that's the way we even go, or maybe we try to talk more about how the voters are feeling and not necessarily who's ahead and who's behind. Or maybe what I would like to see all of us do, including myself, is really report the margin of error better and try to explain to the press and the public what it actually means. We had an 8-point margin for Murphy ahead of the election day. If you apply that margin of error, that really could have meant anything. We had a plus or minus margin of error of 4.1 percentage points, meaning it could have been a tie.
He won by 3.
And he won by 3. And so, if we apply that margin of error and talk a little bit more how to understand it, we might be in a better place than reporting these numbers as if they are, the be all end all. Again, this is statistics, right? We have to embrace uncertainty more and the possibilities of what can happen, almost like a weather forecast. A meteorologist doesn't say, it's going to rain today. They tell us a probability and a chance of if it's going to rain. I think we need to try to understand polling a little more like that. It takes more education on behalf of the pollsters. It takes more understanding and comprehension on behalf of the press and the public. Maybe idealistic, but I always hope for that.
Ashley, a simplistic question. I need a 30-second response, which is unfair. Do you think more and more people are lying to pollsters?
I would not doubt it. I think that's one of the biggest challenges we face. I think we've seen that time and time again in 2016 and 2020. We did see very accurate polling in 2018 midterms. We saw accurate polling in the Virginia gubernatorial. So I think there's this common denominator of Trumpism that has really been through a lot of these election cycles. I do think that can become a problem if we're talking to the Republicans who are different from the Republicans who are voting, specifically among that subgroup.
Complex stuff. Hey, Ashley, I want to thank you so much for joining us. You and the team at Eagleton doing important work, one of our higher ed partners that we try to learn from. Dr. Ashley Koning, who is the director of the Rutgers Eagleton Center for Public Interest Polling. All the best, Ashley.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
You got it. I'm Steve Adubato. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare. PNC, Grow Up Great. Fedway Associates, Inc. MD Advantage Insurance Company. PSE&G, Operating Engineers, Local 825. IBEW Local 102, Lighting the Path, Leading the Way. Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters. And by the Fidelco Group. Promotional support provided by Insider NJ. And by Jaffe Communications.
Choosing a new family doctor can be confusing. Check with your health insurer to see which physicians near you participate with your plan. Find out which hospitals the doctor uses and who covers when the doctor is away. And remember to schedule an appointment with your new doctor in advance to fill out any paperwork without the added stress of being sick.